Hi, I'm John McElroy. We're at Infineon's Automotive Detroit Center right now, and I'm talking with Ray Notarantonio. He's the Senior Director of Vehicle User Experience and EE Architecture. So first off, what the heck does that mean, user experience? We hear it all the time, but I'm not sure everybody knows exactly what it means.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John, first of all, for taking the time for us to talk today. And for us, what user experience is at an automotive level is everything that customer is interfacing with the vehicle, whether it's a touch screen or a cluster or their power seats or their connectivity, right? They want to get on Bluetooth. They want to connect to Wi-Fi. Your liftgate system. So all of those systems that the consumer is really interacting with at the vehicle level, right? So we do a lot of that. We also, you mentioned EE architecture, a lot of that.
I was going to ask you that, explain that too.
Yeah, I'll jump to that one. That's really the underpinnings of what's happening underneath that user experience. And it's not having to do with the safety or the powertrain systems, those are different groups, but it has to do with things like the data movement, right? Gateways, the telematics systems, the body control systems that are operating underneath all the things that the customer sees. So the customers can't see these things, but that EE architecture is what makes the vehicle a vehicle.
Yeah. Ray, as you know, right now, the hotbed of activity in the automotive industry, at least in this area of what we're talking about, is going to centralized computing, sort of being able to do a whole lot more with more powerful microprocessors. But you're working on a level below that, right? Zone control? Do I have that right? And what is zone control exactly?
Right. So I think you've touched on something. There is a transition right now where OEMs are moving from what you call a distributed or domain architecture, and they want to develop these centralized compute architectures. And the zonal part of that, the zonal ECUs, are a very critical component to enable that. And again, a lot of people may not see these directly. And there's a lot in the press about car computing, but without these zonal ECUs, the car computing has nothing to engage and nothing to make the vehicle a vehicle. So, in the old days, it used to be if you wanted to add a function, you added an ECU. Powertrain, I want to add an engine controller. I add an engine controller ECU, right? I want to add a lighting function. I add a lighting ECU. And over time, right, that becomes really unsustainable. If you take a look at vehicles today without these new architectures, there could be 90 ECUs in there. Where do you package these? How do you wire these? So all those things are driving a lot of costs and even interoperability issues, if you will. So I think the OEMs now are getting smart and saying, we have to take it to the next level. We have to talk about the three megatrends, right? Electrification, autonomy, and connectivity. And those things are going to require really a computer, a brain for the vehicle, right? And this is where you hear a lot about the central computing part of it. And the implementations can be different, right? Some people will have a central computing for the infotainment or maybe for the autonomous side, right? To handle those things. But then underneath that are all these zone controllers. And these zone controllers are really meant to connect the new world to the old world. The old world it's the lighting, it's the actuators, it's the motors.
Those are the zones that you're talking about.
And those are fundamentally the loads, all the things that make a car, right? Your seats, your braking systems, all those things. And you need to be able to still have those functions, but the car computer is going to make a lot of decisions. It's going to be handling things like a lot of data crunching, all the connectivity back up into the cloud where big data will occur, right? It's going to be handling all that. It's going to be doing all the image sensing. It's going to be doing things like the vehicle dynamics, right? Trying to figure out the propulsion and the braking system, all these things, and then telling the zone controllers what needs to happen, right? And so today, there's a lot of ECUs in a car, and the OEMs, outside of those three megatrends I mentioned, the fourth megatrend, which has been a megatrend forever, is cost. So really what's happening now is that they want to add these computing centers, but they have to figure out a way to do it cost effectively. Otherwise, there's no point in having a $200,000 vehicle that no one wants to buy.
Right.
And these zone controllers, I think, are the key element of that, where they're going to integrate some of these legacy ECUs, right? So you'll be able to have fewer modules. There'll be a higher level of integration for sure. But they'll also be interfacing to systems that don't need to be updated or don't need to be the most advanced systems, right? The system works to fine. It's been working fine for the last 5 years. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. And so these zone controllers will be that middleware between the new world and the old world. And the other thing about zone controllers, and I use the term zone, although there's other industry names for it, is that they're not going to be associated with a domain, meaning that they won't be associated with an infotainment system necessarily, or a powertrain system or a safety system. They're going to be associated with a geographical location in the vehicle.
And has that got to do with wiring?
Well, I think you're onto something there. I think the wiring piece is a big part of that, because at the end of the day, they want to have maybe a front, rear, left, right. And by doing that, you can really now optimize wiring. And wiring, by the way, is the second most expensive end item for an OEM.
I had no idea. That's an amazing stat.
Yeah, and it's most cars have over a mile of wiring in them if you stretch it all out. Some of them 2 miles of wiring. Again, this is not a sustainable thing when you think about the cost of copper, when you think about the weight. When you want to go to electrification, what impacts your range? Weight. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people talk about the sheet metal and all these other things, but the reality is a harness is pretty heavy. I think some of these harnesses can be well over 100 pounds. Mm-hmm. So that's like carrying an extra passenger, yeah. Right? So all those things really will be a big factor. And I think the zone controllers, the way that the OEMs are trying to architect them, is to connect the old to the new world, but also to try to help optimize the costs.
Why do they need to connect the old to the new? Why not just go all new? Is it because they've got systems that are probably related to safety, systems that have been validated, they work just fine, yeah. And like you say, maybe they don't need bleeding edge technology to work it. I mean, if you're moving the mirrors or the seats, how sophisticated does it have to be?
Yeah, very true. And I think that's exactly what you're going to find. That's why I mentioned before, the implementation is going to be different depending on the OEM. Some of the OEMs that are really large OEMs that have a huge, diverse portfolio will have to really make some decisions, because at the end, they want the zone controllers to become much more of a standardized hardware, because the OEMs are going to become the software architects. This vehicle is going to be defined by software. We've heard this term a lot, software-defined vehicle, software-defined car. And at the end, the software that's going to define this car is going to be in that top layer. It's going to be in the computing section. That's where the brand of the vehicle is going to be, right? And so these zone controllers, again, are the interface to that piece and the legacy piece. And on the legacy piece, an OEM is going to have to decide, do I need to reinvent the wheel here, right? Can I just keep this legacy system? Is it good enough? Is what I had for a power seat need to be different? Is what I have for a window lift need to be different? Is what I have for analog braking system, does it need to be different because that's a functionally safe system? Do I want to mess with that, right? And those are the trade-offs that the OEMs will be making as far as what gets let's say up integrated, what continues to stand on its own is a legacy system that will still be interconnected through the zone controllers into the main car computer.
So where do the legacy OEMs stand right now in this journey? Where do they get to in a few years, and what's the ultimate goal here?
Yeah. Right now, I would say most of the mainstream guys are somewhere between what I call the distributed architecture, which is add a function, add a box, and domain, where they've kind of clustered the ECUs into these different, maybe 4 or 5 different domains, right? Which is really beneficial because then they can optimize that domain, whether it's a powertrain domain or an infotainment or safety domain. The problem there is that the cross-domain connections typically have to go up through a gateway. And that does create some latency issues, and you need system engineers to work across these domains, because the OEMs are certainly organized by domain, at least historically they have been, because that really is where they want to optimize the performance and cost, right? The cross-domain, I would say, was less of a need. And every organization comes with its pros and cons, right? So now you're seeing this migration over to, hey, we got to get rid of these domains because we have to create these hardware functions and these software functions that could be anywhere. if you will. So I think those are some of the things the OEMs are working through.
What do you think their end goal is then? I guess what you're working on now is optimizing the zone control. Do they ultimately go to a fully centralized system?
I mean, everything would indicate that that's where they probably need to go, right? And I think this is the big step, right? This is one it's taking place right now. You don't see it on the street yet. You probably start to see the first systems in 2024, 2025, certainly by 2027. But then you'll see this migration that will occur, right? And from where you are with zones, the next step may not be as big of a step, right? Might be a little bit more evolutionary. This move is going to feel very revolutionary because it's going to change even how the OEMs are organized internally, and you're starting to see that already.
You are. In fact, that leads to my next question is, talk about the impact on all the stakeholders of these changes.
I mean, like I said, you're starting to see it already. The OEMs are reorganizing, restructuring. They're hiring a lot of software people. They are developing technology partnerships. And specifically, their engagement with semiconductors like Infineon is growing, exponentially every day. So from that perspective, the landscape is very much changing in the OEM world. Where guys were, the teams over there were maybe not as worried about advanced electronics or semiconductor technology or even where chips are made. But now you can see even our U.S. government is making an investment as to where chips are made. So this is gonna have an impact in the automotive space.
Boy, is it ever. What am I missing here? Anything that we should have covered that we haven't yet?
I think we have covered quite a bit of ground. I mean, one thing that I would say is that Infineon is a very large automotive semiconductor company. We're really the largest.
You're more than very large, aren't you? The largest automotive supplier of semis?
We are the largest, and for us, the zone controller trend is something that we started to see a while ago. And one of our jobs here is to see these things and to start working on new products and new ideas. And I think we're very well positioned in the zone controller space with our microcontrollers that can handle functional safety if it's needed, has low power modes, again, for automotive, if it's needed. You want your car to be parked for 2 weeks and not have the battery go dead, right? Great cybersecurity, which is needed even more now with the connectivity coming. We have full technology of power products because these vehicles need a lot of power to operate them, to drive lighting, to drive motors and actuators. We're developing right now new products that are really targeted to help reduce wiring, right? We haven't made a press release yet, but those things are coming. And the other thing is we're doing a lot in the wireless Bluetooth space. So all this car access piece and the connectivity piece is a really big area for us. So I think we're very well positioned there, and we're very excited about the future.
It's easy for you and I just to sit here and talk about this. What you're talking about is a revolution in the industry. I mean, you touched on that, but it's going to be an engine of change, this move to zonal and centralized computing.
Yeah, I think the OEMs really will be focused on how do they standardize, how do they commonize, and then there's going to get a lot of pressure about how do they differentiate. Because, again, I mentioned those three trends, electrification, autonomy, and connectivity, those are going to be the things that are going to drive people into the showroom. And how do you differentiate your vehicle along those three lines, right? And how do you do it in a way that's not adding a bunch of cost? So, customization, flexibility, those are going to be met with a lot of price pressures from within the OEM. And I think managing that is going to be the secret sauce for these guys.
I think you're right, too. Ray Notarantonio, thank you so much for your insights, information. Very interesting to see where this industry is going.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate you taking the time.